right, it's 4 o'clock, so I think we will start now. Good afternoon, everyone. The League of Women Voters of Lane County wishes to welcome the candidates for Lane County Assessor and thank you for participating in today's forum. We'd also like to welcome our audience and thank you for taking the time to learn about your candidates' positions. My name is Paula Grisapi and I'm Voter Service Chair for the Lane County League. The League is a nonpartisan organization that has been registering and educating voters, fostering civil discourse, and supporting voter rights since its establishment in 1920. We encourage informed and active participation in government. Today's forum will allow candidates a 3-minute opening statement and a 2-minute closing statement. Each question will go to both candidates, who will be given 90 seconds to respond. We will not allow rebuttals. Candidates will proceed in alphabetical order for opening statement and reverse alphabetical order for closing statements. Questions will be alternated between the candidates so that each candidate will have a turn to go first. We ask that out of respect for the audience and each other, candidates adhere to their allotted time. Audience members may submit questions through the Q&A function of the meeting. Now I'd like to introduce our moderator, Sharon Posner. She is a longtime League member and retired videographer and talk show host. Sharon?
Hi there. Hello.
Go
Hi.
ahead. All right, Sharon, you can take over the meeting now and start the questioning.
Well, first there'll be the opening statements, and I gather the first one will be by Faith. So you could do your opening statement.
Okay. So I believe I'm the best person for the position because I've worked in the office for 12 years. I've been progressively learning more and more throughout the office, working my way up from an appraiser 1 to a sales data analyst over that time frame. I believe that the office needs to work on our transparency, both to the public and to our staff. We need to improve how we communicate information about everything from our budget to, and especially for taxpayers, their property records as well. Right now, we have access to the property records via our website, but it isn't very user-friendly. And there's no way for taxpayers to report when they've made changes to their property. I think that's really important that people are able to do that. We put the responsibility of knowing what the record is on the taxpayer, and we don't have enough ability for them to make that improvement change to their record. I've got some ideas on how to do that, but that's something that we can talk about. I'm not really used to doing or speaking at a Zoom meeting, and I'm much more comfortable speaking to people one-on-one or even to a group of people. So this is a bit of a challenge, and I appreciate the invitation to be here. I really do want to do what's best for our department and for the people of the county in general. And I think that we've been kind of marching along to the same drum for a very long time, and we need to make some informed changes to the department. And by informed, I mean we need to look to the staff who actually do the work to make those changes. We need to invite them all into the process. And at the moment, that isn't exactly what happens. So all in all, I'm hoping that the questions you ask me will help frame what you know about me a little bit more, because I'm not very good at this opening statement. So that's all I've got to say for now, but hopefully there'll be some more questions later. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Faith. Mary, your opening statement now.
Thank you. Thank you, League, for having this and hosting us. This was a long time coming, so I really appreciate your work on this. My name is Mary Vuxit-Schaefer. I'm the Deputy Assessor of Lane County, and I'm running for the office of Assessor. The current assessor, Mike Coles, is retiring, and he and the Lane County Assessment and Taxation Management team have entrusted me to preserve the integrity of the department by choosing me as the Deputy Assessor earlier this year. I might add, the management team has over 122 years experience in assessment and taxation. I'm third generation Lane County, and I've spent 46 years living, working, and playing in this beautiful county. I was born in Springfield, raised in Eugene, and my husband, a high school teacher, and I have chosen to raise our 2 sons here. I come from hardworking people who taught their children the values of civic responsibility, family, and stewardship. On both sides of my family, my grandfathers were veterans and public servants. One was a police officer and the other a middle school teacher in Springfield. Actually, it's Springfield Junior High, back when they had junior highs, Don Kalstead. I'm the daughter of a realtor, and as a child, my mother would take me on country drives to scout properties for her clients. On weekends, I was her assistant for open houses. My exposure to so many properties and the people who call them home shaped my appreciation for this vastly diverse county. These were the days long before Zillow, so she was out pounding in signs in her heels in the rain. After graduating from Oregon State University, I moved into the workforce, dedicating my efforts to serving our community. I started as a supervisor case manager at a Looking Glass youth shelter. The pay was low, the hours were long, but the kids were resilient and the experience was unforgettable. As much as I love social work, I knew that working with property and civic duty was my calling. When I made the shift, I worked for Prudential Preferred Properties and then for First American Title. When a position opened with assessment and taxation, I jumped at the chance to apply. I joined the team in 2005 and have been there since. My first 11 years were in the property tax management division. 6 of those years, I moved over to appraisal, where I was a registered appraisal. And now in the last division, the administration division, I'm the deputy assessor. The foundational skills I learned during my transition into the appraisal division, the foundational skills I learned during that time made my transition into appraisal seamless. I see my time now, so I have to scroll down a little bit. So as part of the management team, I've started to tackle my goals of investing in our people, the environment, and our technology. And I believe I am the right person to be the assessor of Lane County. As deputy assessor, I already have a seat at the table. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you very much, Mary.
Thank you.
Many people say that they don't really understand what goes on in the assessor's office and what the assessor does. Could you each speak briefly to why you think they don't know very much and what you might do to remedy that?
Yes.
I think, do you start first, Mary?
I do. Thank you. Thank you, Sharon. You know, I have been, during this campaign, I've been knocking on doors. Every day I knock on doors. And that is the single biggest question, most common question people say is, what does the assessor do? And, you know, in short, what I say is the assessor is responsible for a department of 50 people. And we are charged with appraising property, collecting tax, and distributing that revenue to 85 taxing districts. And those taxing districts support the vital services of this community. And I think if you know a firefighter, a teacher, a librarian, if you drive on these streets, if you've ever, you know, utilized a vaccination clinic through Lane County Public Health, these are the vital services that people are paying into. I want people to feel vested in their community through their property tax payment. And, you know, people have been thanking me as I have been just explaining that to them. And, you know, I know this sounds silly, but making them excited about being a part of this community, that they have a buy-in, they're vested in this community and the vital services that we provide.
Okay, thank you. Faith, do you want to respond to that question?
So what the assessor does is navigate run the office essentially. The people that work for the assessor's office are the ones that actually do the work of appraisal, collecting taxes, calculating and collecting taxes, and distributing funds. The responsibility of the assessor is to set the culture of the office so that it reflects customer service, accuracy, equity, and also the transparency that we expect from our public servants. So for me, all of the other parts of that are all part of that picture, all of the pieces that we do, all the things that we do. But I think that the assessor actually sets the tone in the office. And I think that's more important for staff retention and from the point of view of a taxpayer. If the staff is being well trained and if they've got the culture of public service really embedded in the culture of the organization, then the taxpayer is going to see that in the customer service that they receive. So for me, it's a lot more than just the process itself. The process itself is statutory. We're required to do it. It has a framework that we have to follow, but really the office itself is what the assessor is responsible for. And that means training people and making sure that they have the customer service skills that the taxpayers demand.
Thank you. Let me just follow up a little bit on that. And since I think both of you think that the public should know more, do you have some techniques or mechanisms in mind how would you help people learn more?
Do I get to answer?
Yes, you go
Okay.
first.
So that's something that I've been doing for years. I've been a utility appraiser for the better part of my career at the county. And what that means is that it's based on the economic principle of usefulness. So one of the things that I am exceptionally good at, and I bet even Mary can attest to it, is explaining the tax system process to taxpayers, doing it in such a way that they understand what's going on with their property. They understand the decisions that they have to make. I get phone calls about people who want to add an addition or put in a deck, and they want to know how it's going to affect their taxes. And I answer those questions clearly, concisely, but with enough thoroughness that they understand exactly what's going to happen to their property and how it's going to affect their taxes. So it's something that I've already got experience at. We can do more by actually creating a more user-friendly website that allows people to give us the information that we need on a year-by-year basis. We can provide more technology support. I have people that call that don't have computers, and so teaching our staff about customer service and making sure that they understand the system as well as I do, so that they can explain things as well to taxpayers. And that's something that we really should be working harder on.
Thank you. Mary, you want to respond to that?
Yes, thank you. So my first 11 years of assessment and taxation were in property tax management, and that is working the front line with the taxpayers. I was the lead in public information. I trained a team of 8 people to field all the questions. They knew a little bit about everything that we did in our department. So I think it's nice to have that customer service. We have a customer service standard that people follow and adhere to already in our department. But I want to elevate the conversation. I don't want people just to come to us. I want to meet people where they're at. Right now as deputy assessor, I have the opportunity to partner with realtors, title companies, so to really educate people before they need to contact us. I want them to know that if they pull a permit, what is that going to do to their property taxes? I want them to be empowered to look at our records and say, yes, everything that is on the dirt represents my property, which is representative of the tax statement. So I don't just want people to come to us. That's all fine and well. We do great customer service when they come to us across the department as it is. I want to meet people where they're at. And that is community engagement, it's involvement, it's knocking on doors during an election. It's getting out there and representing the people in all sorts of venues.
Thank you. Let's talk on a slightly different subject right now. This is a very volatile, very active housing and business, both for houses and commercial property right now. From your view of the assessor's office, has the office been able to keep up with the changes, and what plans do they have to do that?
Mm-hmm. Sharon, thank you for that question. So I was in assessment taxation when we laid off 14 people in 2 years. Since then, we have only recovered 2 of those positions, and we have 198,000 tax accounts. So we're lean. We are lean already, right? So what we are doing is working on some efficiencies Some of the things that I've started as deputy assessor is I am partnering with other counties to look at how they do personal property filing, so we don't have to mail out packets anymore. And then business owners can just go online, fill out their personal property return online, and then we'll have the information. Now, this is going to take a little while. You know, it takes contracting, you know, working with county leadership, which I've already started to do on this process. So creating more efficiencies using our website in more user-friendly ways. Thank you. These are some of the things we can do to make up for the fact that our staff is lean and we're responsible. Last year, we $620 million in property tax revenue is what we distributed to the different districts. So we need more bodies, and we need to be more efficient.
Thank you.
Yes.
Faith?
So
Faith?
we in fact do need to be more efficient. And one of the things that I point out to people is that prior to the property tax limitation laws 54750 back in the mid 90s, we had an appraisal staff of over 30 appraisers. Right now we have about 6 residential, and I think we're supposed to have 4 commercial. And I think if we only have 3 at the moment, I think we're down 1. But the point is that with that, we're not able to appraise the entire county. We're moving toward technology to help us with that process, but I really think that we need to turn to taxpayers and ask them to help us. I know that most people, when I talk to them, they all say the same thing. They all want to pay their fair share. But a lot of times that record keeping part of it is the hardest part to take care of. And as far as what we have been doing, I've been there for 12 years and not much has changed in that time. There have been a lot of things that have been talked about, but we still have the same, our number of accounts keep growing. I think there were 175,000 when I started, and now we're up to 198, but we just haven't adapted fast enough. And for me, that's kind of where we have to be. We have to be more flexible and more adaptable, and we have to respond to the changes that are happening in our county. That means that we need to work harder at it faster, and they've had their time.
Okay. Well, following along on that, as you know, there's new legislation, House Bill 2001. There's going to be some changes in what can be built on which size lots and everything. What kind of adjustments are you going to be able to make to those new types of housing proposed?
So does that mean?
Yes, I'm sorry. Yeah, you get first on this one.
So, but that, now, as I understand it, that's going to allow multifamily, or at least multiple units on a low density residential property. So given that, as far as the changes, anything statutorily, anything that makes changes to the property can be taxable. But the true key is going to be doing the actual market studies to determine whether or not what the contributory value is of that particular new unit. With residential property currently, we don't use an income approach, and the assumption is that if you build an ADU or a secondary dwelling, that it's more of a relative home, and so it's not necessarily something that's going to produce income. So our responsibility is to, and we're statutorily required to add changes to the record and then calculate the value change based on the market studies. So that's our responsibility. That's what we have to do. I'm not quite sure what else you want with that question as far as.
That's a good response.
Okay.
Mary, what's your response?
You know, I mean, Faith is right. Statutorily, everything we do is bound by statute. Or I'd say like 95% of it. The other 5% of it is administration. So it's just getting boots on the ground, inspecting those properties, you know, having good, you know, comparables so that we can add those to the tax roll at a fair value. Now, at the end of the day, getting a fair and accurate tax roll certified is the job of the assessor. So just keep doing what we're doing in that regard. Now, if there's ever a tax exemption that were to come down the pike for these, in accordance with this House bill, something like a MUPD, or if people went that route, then we would again follow, we'd definitely follow the how it's mandated to us. So the multi-unit property tax exemption is what the MUPD is. But unless it's exempt in some way, we'll add it to the tax roll. So, yeah.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Yes.
One question that comes up from, I'm sure, many of the people whose homes you assess is, how often are physical assessments being made? They think, oh, either they come right away or they don't come for years. So that's a kind of a common refrain. What's your response to that?
That's a great question. And there's some properties we haven't been to in 30 years. And that is due to the number of people the number of appraisers that we have. Now, if you pull a permit, if you, build a new house, if you have a fire, we're going to come and visit the property and adjust the value in accordance with what is happening on the property. Or if people reach out to us for a square footage review, we are doing, every year we try to do a reappraisal. So we pick a different area and go out and make sure what is on the roll is what's on the dirt. So yeah, and it is a problem. We need more staff. We just need more staff. And as a deputy assessor, I have the honor of working with other counties to talk about how we get stabilized funding for assessment and taxation purposes. We're looking at the districts, we do all of this and we don't get a benefit from the districts. So we do all the clerical and administrative work, and we're not paid for those services. So we need to be compensated for those services. So that's an ongoing conversation with the Oregon Association of Counties.
Thank you, Mary.
Yes.
Faith, do you want to respond to that?
Could you repeat the question for me?
Say that again.
I said, would you repeat the question for me?
Okay, I didn't write it down, but it's wanting to know how often do you get out to appraise both your commercial and residential properties?
Well, something that isn't really built into the statute is that is equity. And I want to point out that in the process that we use to determine which properties we go out and see, the properties that get seen are those that sell outside, not every property, but just the tails, just the too high compared to our real market value and too low compared to our real market value. So those we see, and then properties that pull permits, and we don't even get to go to all of the permits. We only go to those that we just feel are going to be a value adjustment kind of permit. We don't often get any kind of notice that there's been a fire or anything like that on the property. We don't get fire station reports for those. But the point is that what we often do is we end up seeing the same property over and over again, but we don't get to see properties, every property in the county. Technology is going to help us with that. We're hoping to implement a mobile way of doing our data entry, so mobile assessor. But the fact of the matter is that it isn't possible to inspect all properties. I've floated a number of ideas with using our data entry, our data system to determine which ones we should see, to go, instead of going to visit a property by a neighborhood, but by going to visit a property based on the last time we saw it. But that hasn't been implemented as of yet. I've been promoting that for years, so.
Thank you. Which makes me think, are there very different methods of appraising your residential and your commercial properties?
So
there's one. Yeah, go ahead.
So there are different techniques for valuing commercial and residential properties. The system that we use is called mass appraisal, and the software we use is more than 20 years old. So it's something that we're going to have to replace soon. We probably should have several years ago. But the fact is that that process, I'm part of that. I'm actually one of the sales data analysts that does the ratio study. The mass appraisal process for a residential utilizes a cost factor book that we then use our current sales studies to make adjustments to that cost factor. So if we say the cost of building a house was $100 10 years ago, and we say 10 years later that the market's gone up 10%, then now that house is $110. So, but that's not necessarily a trend adjustment. It's a factor adjustment that goes to the modifiers. Now for commercial, we use primarily the income approach to value properties in commercial. There are three approaches: income, cost, and sales comparison approach for commercial properties. And I've been working on building models to value properties using a modeled approach, which is an income modeled approach. But I've also built market model, which is a sales data or sales comparison approach. So I understand that process very intimately.
Okay, thank you. Mary, do you like to speak to that?
Yeah, I mean, it's what everything Faith said is accurate. You know, I will talk about our software system. It's 30 years old, and it is robust in the fact that we have two systems that roll value into one, rolls value into another. And they're robust in the fact that they do what we need. And right now, there's no software system on the market that is robust enough to do what we need with Measure 5, Measure 47, and 50. So looking at our budget this last year, it just doesn't make fiscal sense to spend like $4 million in taxpayer money to implement a system that's 20 years old, that's not going to be supported. So we're going to keep our 30-year-old system. We're going to maintain it until we have a system that can actually support the complexities of the Oregon property tax system. It's just not a good use of our resource. We're talking with vendors, we're working with them, but there's nothing on the market right now that's going to satisfy our needs. So yeah.
Okay, all right. So let's move to looking at what happened with 2 years ago when there were all the fires in Lane County. And many people lost everything in that fire. So this is a question came from one of our members. How do you deal with undocumented material stories, especially in rural areas? When your inspectors look at houses, how do they deal with suspected illegal dwellings?
Oh, that's a good question. Sharon, I was the representative for the county and property tax appeals during this time. And I worked with many taxpayers who lost, everything. And one house in particular, I'm thinking about. This gentleman owned a home on the river. It was beautiful. And as a result of losing all the improvements on the home, we did a process of issuing refunds. We would look at the value of the improvement that was destroyed, and long story short, we would take out maximum assessed value for that improvement. Well, there were a lot of things that were on the tax roll, or excuse me, that were not on the tax roll, that were on the land that people lost, outbuildings, and unfortunately, those situations, we couldn't help mitigate those situations because we can't take value away that wasn't actually on the tax roll. So, people would have to work that out with their insurance companies, but our hands were tied. We can't take value if it wasn't recorded. So
complex. Thank you.
It's very complex. Yes.
Faith?
So that's one of the things that I want to see change in our system is I want to allow taxpayers to at least submit that they have made a change to their property. there's a couple of reasons why, because illegal structures aren't necessarily illegal. People can build a deck that isn't more than 30 inches off the ground. They can build a 200 square foot structure with no electricity or power or water, and they don't need to get a permit for those structures. But because of the way our system is, they are technically they're taxable. And so we come out, you know, a few years later, and we discover, for whatever reason, we discover that there are structures that on the property that we don't have in the tax roll. And the taxpayer ends up having to pay a back taxes bill on it. We're required by statute to pick it up and put it on the roll, and to bill up to 5 years plus the current tax year to that taxpayer that owns the property. Now, if they've owned it for that entire time. So that's one of the reasons why I really think it's important that we give taxpayers the opportunity to report changes to their property timely, so that they have an opportunity to avoid that kind of back tax process. But as what Mary was saying, when there's a destruction of property, there wasn't taxable value added if we don't know it's on the roll. So that's why we can't take taxable value off for that. But ultimately, that's what I would like to see.
Thank you. So there was a nice story in the newspaper this past week, an interview with both of you. And you gave an example where you said that the county needs to educate people to save them a headache of back taxes on their improvement. Would you like to expand on that and say what you mean there and how you would implement it?
That's me, right?
Yeah, sorry, Faith. Yeah, that was you that said that.
Yeah. So yeah, I can't say it enough that really the opportunity to talk to one person at a time is terrific, but we really do need to get in front of a lot of people and explain things to them. And ultimately, I've floated ideas through the office of providing the escrow companies with a little leaflet that talks about the different things that can go on with property, so that they can get that in front of them and educate them at that moment. But really, we have to give people the chance to report things. And I think that if we make our website a little more user-friendly, then it would be easier to get that information out in front of them.
Thank you. Mary, do you want to respond to that?
Yeah, you know, Sharon, I touched on this a couple of questions ago, but as the deputy assessor, I'm doing that. I'm doing a lot of outreach with taxpayers, realtors, title companies, and just educating the people who help the property owners and the buyers and the sellers. And I think that it is something that is lacking, and I've already started doing that. So I feel like it's got legs. So I'm making that move. It's great.
Thank you.
Yes.
So now let me look. This is for you, Mary. Also in those interviews, one of the things that you mentioned that I thought was interesting was maintaining partnerships with local and regional organizations like LCOG and other departments. Mm-hmm. So what would be your plans to implement developing or improving, either developing new relationships or improving existing ones?
That's a great question. And I think that I don't have plans to do these things. I'm doing them. With LCOG, they are upgrading their database, so they're getting input from us. We are going to mobile assessor. And so we are partnering with the other counties that have already implemented this mobile assessor. We're learning from their mistakes. We went to the Yamhill County 2 weeks ago and worked with them, saw how they implemented mobile assessor, what's working for them, what's not, what advice they have for us. And I'm currently working with the city of Eugene, because you have all these different agencies, governmental agencies that are not interconnected. So there has been some progress made. LCOG is a great example of that. But the city of Eugene, even our own public works department, we don't get plans timely from these places. And it makes taxpayers frustrated, as it should. So what I'm trying to do is bridge that gap not, we need those plans, we need this information. It helps our records be more accurate. It saves time and it saves resources. So I'm working with the city now to get their plans, but and some plans are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pages long and documents long. So just making sure those relationships are more sound.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Faith, would you like to respond to that question?
So that process for getting plans and permits from the different jurisdictions actually started quite a while ago. Before Mary became the deputy assessor, we were talking about it in one of our sub meetings. But as far as relationships are concerned and software is concerned, there are 36 counties in Oregon, and we all operate under the same property tax statutes. And one of the things that I would like to do is work with those counties as well as the state to leverage the funding that we have, that we've been squirreling away for years now, and helps upgrade our software system. The state's already proven that it can support that. It's done that with the permitting system, with Acela, and with all the complaints that they have. The one thing that Acela does have going for it is that in every jurisdiction that it's operating in, we have access to permits and plans. And I think that leveraging that relationship with the state and with the other counties is important. As far as the software, LCOG has RLID, our regional information land database, and we provide the information to them. And we're working on providing the information they actually need. It's been so long since we've looked at our interagency agreement with them that at a meeting just the other day, they were telling us that they just found out we weren't providing them all the information they thought they were getting. So,
do you see a remedy for that?
I do. I think that we need to review all of our processes a little more frequently than every 20 years. And that's part of what I will do, part of what I have been trying to do in the position that I hold as one of the sales data analysts. We need to actively get our other agencies involved, and we need to look at these processes in more detail. We haven't touched that agreement with LCOG in so long, and we use this form. We don't do all the things that they thought they thought we were doing. And as a result, there's a potential that taxpayers weren't getting the information that they needed. So I really would like us to see us be more proactive on that.
Mary, would you want to respond to that follow-up question? When I followed up and asked Faith about the relations with LCOG, and she said she had ideas. Do you want to respond to that?
Our relationship with LCOG is, it's historic. It's very well established. We have a great working relationship with LCOG. And I think sometimes where there's an information gap, we discover it and close it and move forward. I think that's all you can do. So yeah, that's all I'll say about that.
So we're talking now about relationships with LCOG and other agencies. What about the role of the assessor's office in relationships within the county? So do you have an opportunity? What's your opportunity to talk with and get information and share with other departments in the county?
It's my turn, correct? Thank you. As a deputy assessor, I'm partnering with all the different departments in the county. I'm in weekly management meetings. I'm in county administration meetings. And it's interesting, one of my goals is to change our fleet of appraisal vehicles to electric vehicles. And that takes intergovernmental partnerships, right? So the public service building needs an electrical upgrade for that to happen. So, we have to work with, facilities management right now in the county and say, okay, what does that entail? How much is that? You know, okay, and maybe the city of Eugene wants to partner us. They probably need more charging stations. What's that going to look like? What's the construction going to look like? So anything that that I am doing right now is all about partnering with the county administrator, the commissioners. I'm in all the budget meetings for the county, and just knowing how we feed the general fund and what the general fund money is used for is a really good way to partner with other departments in the county, finding out what they do and how we support those services. So that's been one of the best things of being the deputy assessors, you know, meeting these other department directors and really getting down to the nuts and bolts of what those departments do. Thank you.
Thank you. Faith, would you like to respond to that question?
So I've had the opportunity over the last few years to attend what's our E² meetings, which is the county level equity meetings with mostly county directors and their department representatives. And I've gotten a chance to meet Steve, our administrator. I've also gotten a chance to meet Greg Rickoff, and I've met directors from all the different departments. And one of the things that I've tried to maintain is that everyone is human and that these people have their importance in their own departments, but I just feel like that we need to be able to talk to each other in a calm, respectful, and professional way. And I've always been able to do that. I've always been able to communicate with everybody on those teams, making sure that I'm also getting that information across to them, or my thoughts or opinions on different ideas and different things that we're discussing in those equity meetings. So I was asked a question about how I would treat them, or how I would treat the administrator. And I ran into him at coffee once when I was out with my grandmama. And it's just like you treat anybody else, with respect and with courtesy and getting your opinion across. You're not, that's all it is. We're all human and we all have our needs to be communicated with respectfully. Thank you.
Thank you, Faith. Now, here's a question from one of our viewers, and that is, what is the process for receiving more of the necessary revenue to better operate the assessor's office? Faith, you get first bids.
Well, as far as I know, the process is asking the county for more money, because that's where the majority of our budget comes from. We get a small amount, CAFA grant, which is based on our deeds and recordings. There's a small amount of money that comes from interest and fees, but for the most part, the most of our budget comes from the county general fund. So there is no reimbursement, as Mary said earlier, for the clerical work that our office does, administrating and distributing the funds that we collect. But that's something that counties across the state have looked at, and I'm not quite sure how successful that's been. But yeah, if there's anything that we need, we have to go to, just like everybody else, police, the sheriff's office, Health and Human Services, we have to go to the county's general fund and request that funding and prove that we need it. So we've been able to replace a couple of staff members, but we haven't really been able to do much more than that.
Thanks. Mary, would you like to respond?
Yes. You know, the county doesn't have the money to give us. We had to dip into our reserves this year. So I think it's looking outside of the county, and it is partnering with the other counties in the state to determine stabilized funding. It's got to be a legislative move. I think it should come from the districts, you know, a 1% or a 2% for all the districts. I think that's how we're going to get stabilized funding for assessment taxation services. You know, we were the recipient of Secure Rural Schools money years and years ago. And so our our permanent rate is lower than some of our northern counties. And that's a real problem for Lane County. We have a very low permanent tax rate, and we've suffered for a long time because of it. You know, I talked about the layoffs that we had and the fact that we've only recovered 2 of those positions in 17 years. That's a lot of people that we lost that we have not gotten back. So we need stabilized funding. We don't need to look within the county because the county doesn't have the money. We need to look outside of the county to the people that we get their money. You know, we administer all this revenue and we generate it. We should get paid for that.
Thank you. You get the first answer of the next question. And this is a little more general. Right now in government and business and all kinds of fields, there's a great concern for, I think it's DIE, diversity, inclusivity, and equity. Now, does this apply to the assessor's office? And if so, what are you doing there to ensure this diversity, inclusivity, and equity?
Thank you. You know, I'm currently a member of the diversity committee for assessment and taxation, and I have been working with the county equity manager on, she's new to the area and she needs to expand her network. So, and she and I are working with human resources to tap into some of the BIPOC communities in this county. I have put her in contact with Hobie Blackhorn and Rena and Leah Dunbar to tap into areas. It's, you know, the county for so long, we just advertise jobs. People can look for jobs on our website, but we have to go and meet people where they're at in their organic spaces where they gather. And we need, because we're missing a whole bunch of people in this county we're not reaching, and they're qualified to work in our department, qualified to work in the county also. So I think just really meeting people where they're at in their organic gathering spaces so that we can reach a broader network of people and have a more diverse employee base.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Faith?
So one of my issues is I really think that we can be equitable in the department in how we treat people by being more transparent to our staff. And I can't say it enough. I really think that this culture, the culture of equity and inclusion, starts with our office. It starts with where we are at right now. And that means opening the doors to all of the processes, including the budget, and bringing in people from the department. Equity doesn't just mean people of color, people or gender identity. Equity means treating people fairly and equally and giving them opportunities to be part of the voice of decision making. And through that, I really truly believe that we need to work harder to make our staff members feel like they're part of this department in a way that they actually have a say in what happens there. And what that result will be is that we will have more people that want to stay. We'll have more people interested in coming to work for us. And we'll be able to get in front of the people that Mary was talking about. The fact is that we can't keep people or get people's attention if they don't think that they're going to be heard when they come here. And that's what I want to have happen. I want to make sure that everybody in our office is heard by opening up these processes. And through that, I want to start a steering committee so that staff members have a voice in our budgeting.
Thank you, Faith. Well, I think, we have time for another, we have a question from another person who's watching this program. And it brings up something we haven't talked about, which is what had been the effect of the pandemic. And their question is, what are your feelings on having assessment and taxation staff work remotely? And how has that affected your customer support?
So one of the things that COVID has taught us is that we can work remotely. Now, granted, we have customer service hours, so there's going to have to be somebody in the office at some point. But the fact is not everybody wants to work remote. But for some people, it fits better in their life. If they have childcare issues, or they're taking care of a parent or a family member, or if they just feel like they get more done. I can tell you that I built my office so that I can work remotely, and I can be very productive here. But like I said, not everybody wants to do that. It's established in our contract, in the union contract, that we can allow people to work remotely, but it's up to the director of each department to make decisions for their own department. And as far as I'm concerned, the pandemic has proven that we need to be more flexible, and we need to be able to adapt quickly to changes in our workforce. And that gives us one more tool to do that. Prior to that, working remote wasn't an option for anybody in our office. So I think that it's proven that we can do it, and I'd like to continue that.
Thank you. Mary, how do you feel about that?
I feel that working remotely is something that can work for some positions. And I also feel that it's absolutely cannot work for other positions. We deal with money. Nobody wants their money going to somebody's house to be counted, right? We, as appraisers, you check out a county car, those cars stay at the public service building. So there's so many things that that we can accommodate, and some things that we can't. And also, working remotely is really, really helpful for some people, especially, people who have, I live in on a multi-generational property, and I care for my mother-in-law. So it helped me during the pandemic. I've got kids who are in school. That helped me during the pandemic, working remotely. It was very supportive. I wouldn't have been able to keep my job if I didn't have that option. Now, some people don't prefer it, and some people, back to the equity question, some people don't have broadband. Some people don't have an office at their home. Some people don't have the equipment. And so the resources, is the county then gonna fund, a workstation at everyone's house and the office? These are questions that I, as deputy assessor, have to consider, because going forward, this will be my decision at the end of the day. And I'm working with my management team on what could we administer, what's functional, what's working right now. So these are conversations that I'm currently having and considering.
Thank you. And I think we have time for one more from someone who's been watching this. And this has to do, again, with kind of coordination, but not with other counties or in the county, but is there any kind of statewide information and coordination that's among the counties? Or is there any state input into what you do? You're first, Mary.
Can you elaborate a little bit more? I mean,
this is a question that's come in from a viewer, but I think it means that, you can work within the county with other departments, and
yes,
you're working with other organizations here, but is there any direction or information or help that comes from the state to the assessor's office?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, absolutely. We are in work groups. We are in what's called, we have a legislative work group where we have representatives from the Department of Revenue, and we have a legislator. We meet every month, and we talk about what's on the legislative horizon, and we get input from the Department of Revenue on the impacts of certain bills that are coming down the pike. Yeah, absolutely. We partner with the Department of Revenue on a daily basis, if not multiple times a day. We get advice on appeals. Right now, there is some pretty high level appeals, commercial appeals. So we're partnering with the Department of Revenue and other counties to say, okay, what did this petitioner, what was their evidence for this county? What's your perspective on it? What are you going to recommend? So we are partnering all the time, every day, especially on some big ticket items, because it's really important to have continuity within the county and with the Department of Revenue. So absolutely.
Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you, Mary. Faith,
yes.
Your response to that?
So the Department of Revenue has supervisory authority over our work. So everything that we do is supervised technically by the Department of Revenue. And we utilize, in my experience, we utilize them often when there's a question about an interpretation of statute. So we've got administrative rules to follow, but they can't give us every potential scenario that might come up. And we've utilized the expertise of the Department of Revenue staff on a number of occasions, both in appeals and in applying the different statutes that we have to for things like omitted property and clerical errors and things like that. So they have ultimate authority over what we do, though, in everything that we do. And as far as partnering with them, that's a relationship that I think we need to do more to develop, as far as being able to get the funding that we need. I think we need to work a little bit more in framing that conversation with them. Right now, like I said, we utilize them as a resource. They have supervisory authority. They tell us how and what we have to do, but they don't offer us any kind of extra funding or any kind of negotiating skills to leverage with software companies, for instance. And I would really like to develop that opportunity with them.
Thank you. I think now that we're getting near the end of our hour and time for each of you to have I believe, a 2-minute closing statement. And I think we started with you, Faith, if I remember. So now we'll have Mary have the first closing statement, and then Faith.
Thank you. So my education, leadership skills, and experience gives me the depth of expertise that benefits property owners in the 85 taxing districts we serve. If you know a teacher, paramedic, firefighter, or police officer, then you understand how important assessing property, collecting, and distributing revenue is in supporting these vital community services. My education, experience, and training in tax law, market trends, the economy, and leadership is ongoing. Currently, I'm part of a program through the National Association of Counties for High Performance Leadership. The curriculum was developed by the late General Colin Powell and is robust in the areas of civic duty, oath of office, empowerment, and engagement. I'm a graduate of the Lane County Emerging Leaders Program, and I serve on the Equity and Safety Committees. Currently, I'm with Assessor Coles' pending retirement after 30 years in the department, I'm very cognizant of the fact that a chapter is closing on his long career of serving the citizens of this county. I'm committed to preserving the integrity, trust, and legacy of our past while expanding our technological resources, focusing on employee recruitment, retention, and reducing our carbon footprint. I have the experience and passion for this job and look forward to serving the hard people of Lane County as their assessor. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Faith?
So I think that what we've been talking about here, it has a lot to do, it kind of formats what the differences are here. I think we need to be flexible. I think we need to plan ahead for things that are coming. I think that now is a really good time because we have people retiring and we have an opportunity to make strategical changes to the way we do things. And I would like our department, our staff members who actually do the work, to have more of a voice in that process. I think that COVID has taught us that we have to be adaptable and flexible, but it's also, do we want to spend the next 30 years marching to the same drum that we have for the last 30 years? Or do we want to take an opportunity to make some efficiencies and make some improvements and be able to do more with less? That's what I'm looking at. I think we have a terrific staff, and I think that they need to be given more tools and more say in how they do things. But I also think that they are the ones that are going to be the ones that are the next generation that take this office over. And I want them to have a say in how it's run. And I think that I'm the right person to do that, because I've been told by people I love and respect that I'm an instrument of change, not just for the sake of change, but because that's the right thing to do because of the things that are going on. So that's where I'm at. That's what I want.
That's good. Thank you very much. So thank you very much to Faith and to Mary and to all of you who've joined us today to watch this lively debate. Thank you very much for coming. Don't forget to vote.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I'd like to add one thing. Thank you very much, Sharon. And the link to a recording of this forum will be available on the League of Women Voters of Lane County webpage. So if you've missed any portion of it, or you know someone else who would like to see it, please let them know. And good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for attending.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.